turn it over to Nancy and Marissa and Mark.
Hello. Hi, Marissa and Mark. Great to see both of you. So really excited for this session that you're doing a panel with us today on, the mindset for job seekers, because it really is kind of an interesting time. Let's just say, may you live in interesting times. That's an ancient Chinese proverb. And it's a really interesting time for job seekers right now. It's a very interesting job market coming out of COVID, and still the virtual world is still lots of challenges. And company cultures and companies might be recruiting differently, employing people differently, and looking for different kinds of talent right now as we face lots of engineering challenges. So really excited about what you have to share with everyone here at ACAPNU and IEEE and through the Pathways to Industry program today. So I don't know who wants to go first, or we could just start to ask some questions. But Mark, you're the university. You've got a new job. You're university relations for Texas Instruments. So it means you go out and you work with universities directly. You're trying to go out there and work with university students, right?
That's right. Yeah, we have a pretty cool program we've had since basically the 80s. I mean, obviously, TI, we're an old company, over 90 years old. So we've been hiring engineers, for many decades. But yeah, we have kind of a pretty robust university program that we've run since the 80s. And it's a combination of student engagement as well as, of course, the recruiting piece. We want to get people to work at TI, but also when you're on campus, and also the semiconductor research is also a big part. We're a highly innovative company, and there's a lot of kind of collaboration that we do with faculty and research, students, things like that. So how do you manage all those different pieces? That's something we have a lot of experience in. But obviously today we're going to be focusing more on the job seeking that you all are doing as students, and then also what's the perspective from recruiters, and especially with all the kind of the changes we've had to deal with, and then what is it going to look like for the rest of this year?
Right, exactly. And Marissa, we've met recently, and in Southern California has also been a great supporter of ours, and we really appreciate you being here. And you actually, your full-time job is recruiting, right? So you're really out there in the university space, recruiting students, recruiting professionals to join the Southern California Edison team on a regular basis.
Yes, that's my team. My team goes out to campus, coordinates with the business to have presence at our target schools. And I'm really excited to be leading the program now. I'm actually new to role as well. So leading the university and campus relations team at Edison, and looking always for, good and top talent.
Yeah, terrific. So again, we're going to have a recruitment fair after this. So, we've got lots of resumes. You should have gotten resume books. We've got lots of excited students on looking for full-time, part-time, and internships. So what do you think that companies are looking for most today when they're virtually interviewing and still coming out of COVID? What do you think some of the qualities they're looking for most in a potential employee, or what's going to get you that interview?
Yeah, I think for us, one thing I'll advise is, because we're starting to do the live events again, that takes a lot of work for the employers to pull off. So if they're live at your campus, or you have the chance to go to a live career fair or info session, it's important that you try to attend those, because it's big effort for us to pull those off, especially in this kind of transition time where we're starting to try to do more live stuff. So that really is the best in my experience. If we can meet face to face, we can chat in person, shake hands, we can give out some cool swag items for you. I think that's a great experience for you as the candidate, and then also for us as the employer, because we can really, I think, get that better connection versus the virtual. That said, though, there's still going to be a ton of virtual. A lot of the interview process, a lot of maybe even the first time you interact with the company will still be virtual. So you do have to be engaged that way. But I do encourage, if you have the luxury of getting into a live event, especially a live career fair, take advantage of that, because that's going to be your best chance to really network appropriately with employers.
I think so. And what are you finding, Marissa, right now?
I'm finding similarly to Mark, we are waiting to get back on campus. So we're hoping to really get back out there in the fall. So a lot of what we've done in the spring semester has been still virtually information sessions with our student groups, and really excited to get back on campus come the fall timeframe. But I would agree with Mark's sentiments that if you can carve out the time to make sure to stop by to meet with an employer in person, that's great. And even if that doesn't work for your schedule and you are still participating virtually, which we've actually saw some events that we ran ourselves, we saw an uptick in participation, just, asking questions when the facilitators are there to answer any of your questions. That's a great opportunity. In fact, from a virtual standpoint, we're able to have more business partners participate because they're doing it from their desk versus having as many business partners out on campus isn't always feasible. So that's the nice thing too, is that you have an opportunity to interact and interface with a lot of business leaders, and it's a good opportunity just to take advantage of that and ask some really good questions.
You're right. I think there's there's benefits to both, right? And I think sometimes when we do things virtually, people said, "Well, we wish we were in person." The other person, they said, "We wish we were virtual." So I think we're all going to be walking that virtual in-person tightrope for a while. But I agree. I love to be face to face with people. Mark, you've been to our student leadership conference, and hopefully we'll be in person for that next October. And there's just nothing like being with a group of real excited students, with a bunch of you all that really support students and are looking to work with them and hire them. That it's always such an exciting time of it.
Yeah, and I think the hybrid model also, one quick point, Nancy. So you might see some more live events in the future, but it's going to be potentially a hybrid. So maybe they'll do live at the career fair and then say, okay, next week we're going to do the interviews virtually. Or you might see some mix of not like before where we had the career fair and then the next day you're going to get that in-person interview with the same person you talked to kind of thing, because now all of a sudden we've got so many more logistics we have to worry about in terms of getting space to do that kind of stuff and devoting time and resources for the interviewers and things like that. So I think you're going to continue to see that change. And I know many of you maybe haven't even experienced what the old way of doing things was, but that's just the point is, as a candidate, you should be flexible about how each employer is going to kind of do things a little bit based on their process that they can handle.
Marissa, anything else you want to add to that, or?
Yeah, I think we covered it.
I think, yeah, I think it is an interesting time, and I think there's some benefits to both. Like we found with this platform, right? We couldn't always be in person, so we thought this platform, and you can both Marissa and Mark have booths in the expo fair, and they're going to be recruiting later. So just even before you get to Q and anything else, you'll have an opportunity to go meet them both in their booths just a little while. So I think that's exciting for everyone who's here. And I hope you saw the great resume that we put out of really all these great things. So are there skills that you're looking for that are really the hot skills? What's really desirable in each of your marketplaces today? What should students know if they're taking classes or looking to finish up? What are those skills that even if they take extra work in, or they're young professionals, what would you recommend? What are those hot things that you're looking for or can't find, hard to find things?
Well, I will say that the talent out there is great. There's a lot of smart students, and we're excited to interact with them and meet them on campus. I would say some of the things that I hear back from different managers is the soft skills. I think technical has been pretty solid, at least with some of our intern hires that we've had. I think it's the soft skills, understanding kind of business acumen, how to interact professionally in a virtual environment, as well as just communication skills, how to best communicate and articulate your point across are some of the things that I hear. I think those are probably not too different than years past, to be honest, but that's most of the feedback that I hear from my leaders. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So because of just all the changes we've had to do with virtual and things like that, I think the threshold to be more casual has definitely increased. I know you all as students definitely feel that as well, but to be a standout candidate, I think definitely having that more professional outlook, at least to get the job. Obviously, when you have the job, you've got maybe more flexibility in how you can develop your work style and everything like that based on how the company culture is and everything. But yeah, definitely having a more professional way, try to get yourself elevated a bit more so that you can really stand out in these virtual kind of settings. So avoid the distractions, make sure you've got good background, make sure there's not a bunch of noise and things like that. If you can dress up during the video chat, that's always a nice thing to see. And yeah, just engaging, try your best to show interest, do the nonverbal kind of body language type things like nodding when the speaker is talking. Make sure you're listening, understanding what the interviewer or the representative is trying to convey to you and get that information. And really, I think a lot of things, there's kind of like the two steps. One is you're in the interview process and you're just trying to do as well as you can to actually get the job. And then another big part of kind of finding your job is like, what should I be applying for? So that's what kind of like my role is to kind of guide you, like, okay, well, we have these different opportunities at TI, and based on your experience, I think actually you would probably fit really good at this role, but your experience may not be as good for this role. So some of that is like fact finding and like trying to engage and try to see, okay, what's my best chance to actually fit into this company? So those are all the two different kind of contexts I would say you need to be very, very aware of.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess I would always say that research about the company is really important. So, that you actually do prepare and you know a lot about the company before you go into the interview. You've gone through their website, you've looked at lots of job titles, you've maybe looked at some people that work there. What other kind of preparation for an interview do you find makes a excellent candidate, a candidate an excellent prospect when they're in that interview process? What kind of preparation do you look for?
I think you hit it right off with in terms of researching and getting a good understanding using LinkedIn, using our career pages. So many employers have done a really good job with their career pages. There's a ton of information there. So being prepared, we're a values-driven organization. And so a lot of even the interview questions that we ask align with our values. And so just understanding, what our values are and how you can tie that in to your responses. We know it's a lot because interviewing is nerve-wracking, but just kind of having a baseline and understanding, having read, the web pages, as well as I have many students that reach out to people that work at Edison, which is great because they're being proactive and taking the initiative by messaging leaders that they, research or search on LinkedIn and having just brief conversations with them. And I think that's awesome. And it definitely resonates with the managers when students take the initiative to do that.
Mark, any other suggestions on that one? TI is a big company. Well, you're both really big companies, so a lot to know about.
For sure. Yeah, I think the big thing is definitely preparing for the interviews from a technical perspective. But typically, if there's a multi-round, which I think a lot of companies do, you're going to see the technical challenge start to crank up toward the later interviews. In our case, TI, we do 2 rounds for new college grads as well as interns. So the first round is more kind of general knowledge, a lot of the stuff that you're used to as a student coming in, about to graduate as an engineer. You should be pretty familiar with all that stuff. But as you get into those later interviews, definitely you want to kind of prepare. It's like, okay, do I remember my fundamentals from that sophomore class, or do I need to brush up on my circuits and my other type of things? Just so if they do ask me that op-amp question, am I going to ace that question or not? So definitely understanding which interview you're in, and then kind of making sure you're prepared for those more technical questions would be great.
Marissa, I really liked your comment about company values, because I know EdAcademy is a highly values-oriented organization, and we do work a lot on soft skills and how we develop leaders. So not just, our students are the, really the top students, and there's all IEEE students on here too. So they're all really good students. They're, they're getting a great education. But I think it's the alignment to the values. I know we're scholarship, attitude, character, which is all about who you are and, what you value. And I think that's a really interesting point for company culture and other things. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that company culture and that values-based organization? How do you find the right match for yourself? Because it's not just the company finding you, it's you finding the right company, right? You also pick the employer. They don't just pick you. And
Exactly.
you need to find a company that aligns really with your personal values, the things that you're excited about working on as an engineer, how you're excited about using your tools. So what advice do you have in those areas? Because I think sometimes people think they're only looking for you, where you should be really looking for them.
Right. I always explain to students that interviewing is a two-way street, right? So I'm going to ask you questions, and we really look for our interns during the interview process to ask some really good questions at the end. I have a lot of leaders who sometimes will comment like, we like the student, seemed, really excited about them, but they didn't have any questions. Like, it was hard to gauge, how interested they were. And so you want to definitely take that opportunity to ask the questions to make sure that it is a good fit for you in terms of alignment of what you're looking to do and what your long-term, career goals are. I know your question was a little bit twofold. So talking a little bit about the values driven organization, definitely, safety is one of our core values, just given that we are an electricity company. So we have some highly dangerous roles out there in terms of, even our engineers that are out in the field, they are exposed to a lot of different elements. And so safety is always key of mine, innovation. And I think that even ties back to when you're asking kind of skill sets, looking for someone who just really is innovative in their approach, likes to think outside of the box, really is excited to contribute. Our internship opportunities are really meaningful projects. I think that has been one of our cornerstones when we're back on campus, when it's the word of mouth that keeps going, like, oh, wow, my friend had an internship with you and they worked on a really cool project. We are using a lot of different technology. When people think utility, they think, oh, that's an old, similarly, Mark, you said your company is an older organization as well. I think they think it's synonymous, like with old means that you're not necessarily cutting edge, when it's the exact opposite, especially as we are looking as an organization at all the grid technology and innovation, especially here in Southern California in regards to lowering emissions and ensuring that people here go more towards electric in terms of transportation, how folks access that electricity. So a lot of different, facets that tie into the overall mission and values of our organization to ensure that that's a good fit for you and what you're looking to do.
And Mark, TI, again, another incredible company. People think they know a lot of things about TI, but I know there's a lot we all don't know about what's going on in TI, such a big company.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, I think the big thing for us, we have kind of a couple things, but we really want employees to have ownership of everything that we do in the company, and just kind of treat this like, okay, TI is going to be your neighbor. It's going to be your neighborhood company. Do you want them there? And how do we act accordingly to make sure that we're doing good for the community? We're acting in an ethical manner. And in business, there's so many times where there's maybe gray areas, right? And then how do you manage that? So TI, we really are big on kind of, training that ethics and making sure that people are acting accordingly when doing business. And we're a global company, of course, so it happens all different types of ways, all different types of regions, all over the world. And yeah, I think living those values is very, very important to us, and it's been very successful for us over the years. So I think that culture has been strong. Of course, we're a Texas-based company, but we've got folks all over the U.S. and in all our various sites in the semiconductor industry. So yeah, I think definitely absorbing those cultures, and that interviewing at the two-way street, making sure that company is a fit for you, just as well as the company's figuring out if you're a fit for working there. So yeah, definitely figuring that out. If you get an opportunity to get those internships, I think that's a really great opportunity to really dive in. And that really is a common way I think a lot of companies are converting college graduates these days. It's really getting that test run in, saying, oh, this person is perfect for TI or anyone else. And they can bring those interns and convert them over. So that's a fantastic opportunity if you have the chance to do that. If you don't have the chance to do that, interviewing full time, but doing your research, figuring out, is this really a company that I'm invested in? Are we matching our passions? Is this a career place where I'm going to work maybe 1 or 2 years, or is this a place that I really want to spend 10, 20 years at? I'm very lucky to have a lot of colleagues that have made that commitment to just work at the same company for their whole life. And there's very few places you can do that. And if you can plan ahead and do that research and figure out you have the alignment, it is a possibility in some of these companies.
Yeah, one of our speakers earlier, our keynote, really talked about not just finding a job, finding the career kind of feeds your soul. The job might sustain you in your life, but a career really feeds your soul. And I think engineers and today's engineers, I think our young people today, I'm so impressed by them, right? They're very community minded. We have very socially conscious young people who are in our universities today and at Kappa Nu, and they really do care about many things that are social impact is really big to them. So I think aligning that with your corporate values of social impact, because a lot of what we do is solve problems and make the world a better place. So I think that's a really exciting thing. So I think when people can bring you maybe concrete examples of what they've done, maybe it's in a leadership role in something like an Kappa Nu chapter, or maybe in another organization that they're involved with, or maybe when they problem solved, even when they're working with a team, on a project or other things. So you talk about concrete examples. So again, it's really hard for a student, right? They can't go in and say, well, I earned X for the company and I led a team, I managed 40 people and I did this. So for a student, can you talk to me a little bit about the examples of what they might have been able to do, or what should they bring with them in terms of that experience, and translate, and I think that's a harder thing, to translate that what you've done maybe as a leader in an organization like ours or in school into showing what experience you have and that can be translated into the workplace.
Wow, Nancy, you touched on a lot of really great points. Diversity and inclusion is huge within our organization. I know in most recent years it's become a hot topic, but it's a lot of interest of our students to understand what we do from a DEI perspective. And I'm proud to say that Edison, being as old of a company as we are, we've always had business resource groups that really focus on the desires and needs of our employee population. And to us, it's important that our employee population mirrors the communities that we serve. So here in Southern California, it's extremely diverse. And so it's important to us that whoever we hire has that openness, open mind, open of thought, because our community is so diverse and varied. And in some areas eclectic, that we want to ensure that that's a really good fit there. And so the way that students can prepare for an interview to even tie that, or even tie their community involvement, is to show, what examples, I have had students who go into examples of volunteer groups that they've led. We're huge on volunteerism. We have a whole corporate philanthropy department that heads up a lot of volunteer efforts. Due to our organization, a lot of them are focused on environment. So, a lot of environmental volunteer opportunities that all employees can participate in. But also it's important when we hear from students kind of what their desires are and what their involvement is within our communities, because it's important to us, again, that we're always connected to the communities that we serve, not just from a corporation standpoint, but really, boots on the ground in the community, especially with all the different things that are happening here in terms of wildfires in California, unfortunately, have been a big part. And so making sure that we have our emergency response team there and available to talk to residents. Their power gets shut off, and having, those conversations with them. So there's a ton of opportunity for, community outreach. And so when students tie that into their examples, because although you're right, they may not be able to show metrics in terms of here's how I did this, because they're still learning, they're in school. A lot of them do really great in terms of telling us about their community involvement, and how sometimes that even aligns with whatever student group that they're involved with. If they have philanthropy piece, if they've done some work there, that all that information is really helpful and a good selling point as a student, to the different employers that you're meeting with.
And Mark, I'm sure you've talked to a lot of students. What other things have you heard them talk about? Because I know if you can get volunteers to do things, other volunteers. I always say it's like herding cats, right? So if you can lead those kinds of teams, you have some really good skill sets in terms of communication, in terms of having a vision and getting other people to follow your lead, or explaining complex things to groups, those kinds of things. So any other kinds of, what can people use as concrete kind of examples that you've seen that really impress you when you're interviewing?
Definitely. Okay, so there was kind of three parts of the original question, Nancy. So let me talk about the community service stuff a little bit first, and then I'll get to the how do we make my skills at school relevant, and then my skills at work relevant. So as far as community stuff, that's actually one of the softer benefits that you might not even consider in your job search. But like, how easy is it for me to volunteer at work, or how easy is it for if I have a cause, like let's say I want to contribute giving to my university, or I want to contribute giving to my local charities, stuff like that. Is there an employer match? Is there a foundation associated with my employer that I can ask matching funds, these kind of things? At TI, we're very lucky. We've got a great foundation match program for employees. So if you're actively giving money or you're volunteering your time, TI Foundation is going to be contributing to that kind of stuff, and that can add up to lots of great stuff happening. So definitely, if that's something you're concerned about as far as being involved with your community or being involved with volunteerism, definitely that's maybe a small kind of part of the comp package you can be kind of looking and researching into as well. How effective could I be in that area? So going into how do I make my schoolwork relevant? So of course, as engineers, we do kind of have a standardized curriculum. So we're going to be taking a lot of the same classes, things like that. I think the key thing of being successful in school is how do you differentiate yourself, whether it's your involvement with student clubs and activities, if you're going on those competition teams, those robotics activities, the solar car, all that kind of cool stuff. You're going to be making friends in those things. You're going to be exercising your technical skills. And that's great stuff that we like to see as employers that are differentiated. And we know the quality and the passion that you're investing into those kind of things, those kind of, as well as club leadership, things like that. And then your specialized electives as well. So if you're going into more of a power electronics focus, or you're going more into embedded systems or mechatronics or IC design, or what are these kind of like special differentiated skills that we as employers can kind of pick out and say, oh, you're in IC design? Well, yeah, we've got a role for that, and we can connect you with certain people in the company and things like that. So I think calling out those more specialized skills within your major is very important to differentiate your resume when you're doing your job search. And then once you get into the company, it's exactly what you said, Nancy. It's not always that metric. We do have that. Like if you're going to technical sales, it's like, oh, I did this much business for TI, and I grew these accounts and stuff like that. And you can very easily explain that to your manager and show off your performance that way. But there's so many other jobs where that's not so easy. So yeah, how do you kind of basically take all the projects that you've done over the course of a year, summarize your leadership, your contributions to that? How did you navigate the obstacles that came into continuing with that work? All those kind of things of explaining, and really you got to think of yourself as a marketer in a way. It's like you got to market yourself how you are performing. It's of course you're getting your technical work done, but you're also trying to explain to others why that's important, why that's important to the company, why that's important to the bottom line, why that's important to our team, so that we can continue to progress in the objectives that we have moving forward, not just this year, but to future years. So all that stuff is just, don't be afraid to talk about yourself even after you get a job.
Well, I guess you do have to talk about yourself in the interview, right? In a way that kind of does align you with the position, and then with the company, and kind of find out, like I said, find out if it's a good fit for you as well. But both of you have great programs. I know there are a couple questions about the internship programs that you both have. So do you want to talk a little bit about your internship programs? I know a lot of, when I was looking through the interests of all the attendees at this conference, there were a lot of people that expressed they had interest in an internship. So, and you both have awesome internship programs. I know people have gone through both of them. So,
thank you. Yes, we hire about approximately 150 interns every summer, primarily undergrad, and it's a 12-week program. It's fully paid, 40 hours a week during that 12 weeks. We primarily look for engineers. So I'd say about 80% of our program is engineer interns, and from all disciplines. So electrical, civil, mechanical. I think sometimes they think, oh, only electrical, it's an electric company, but no, there's a lot of different components where we use engineers, and always looking for, again, that top, talent. Our internship experience is really great. They have awesome projects that they work on. At the end of the summer, there's an opportunity to talk about your project, and others in the organization attend, which is really cool, including our president. That's one of his most favored events, is to see what the interns worked on all summer. So we have an intern expo. We have an executive speaker series, which is nice because our leadership, many of whom actually were interns themselves at Edison, much like Mark said, because we're an older organization, there has been some really long tenure, and we have some executives that they themselves were interns at Edison and then moved their way up through the ranks. So a lot of them have a soft spot for our program and participate by either being a mentor, coming to our lunch and learns. And additionally, this year we're excited about having our interns back in the office, at least on a part-time basis. So it'll be half remote, half in the office. So I think that'll add an extra layer of engagement there. But we were managed the last 2 years to still have a fully vetted program, where I know a lot of other organizations cut back on their programs. We just did ours 100% remote, and we still saw great success, great conversion rates with our interns, because it really just is about the work that you're doing, and the ways we use the tools to still collaborate and have meaningful work for interns has been awesome. We still have a couple of internship opportunities available, so I put the link in our chat here. So definitely, check those out. We have done the bulk of it early in the year, but there's still some positions out there for last minute managers asking for interns. So, check back regularly. That's what I always encourage the students to do.
Yep, our intern program is basically in the summer. So everyone comes in. A lot of them will be in Texas, but like I said, we do have locations all over the U.S. So we do have pockets of interns at some of our different other sites. But we do have a big group come through Dallas, and it's a lot of fun. They have a lot of great intern activities they usually organize. We were on pins and needles, hoping that we would have in-person internships, and luckily we did confirm we are going to have the in-person internships this summer. And we do actually have a lot of openings, because I know a lot of you are aware we're having the chip shortage kind of crisis right now. So we have a huge forecast of openings that we still need to fill. So for interns, we're still looking for a few. If you talk to me at the booth, I can give you some guidance on some of the areas that we're still looking. But yeah, it's a great time. Would love to invite everyone to apply. Hopefully get a chance to come and see what TI is like in the summertime, work in person with some of the great folks that we have at TI, and mentor and understand a bit more about the company. And then, yeah, hopefully we can invite you back for full time after that great experience. That's kind of like the way we like to do it.
Yeah, I know a lot of companies do that. And, I know several Company students who have gone through both of your internship programs and work for the companies. And, some of them have been our chapter presidents and leaders. So really great to see those young people succeed. And really, I know how much they're enjoying working for both of your companies. So I always like to ask people that interview, what is your go-to question? So when you interview someone, do you have a special go-to question that's maybe not the usual question that, the go-to question that you ask in an interview?
Gosh, there's so many questions.
Like if you were a breakfast cereal, what kind would you be? No, I'm sure you don't. Would you be Special K, or would you be Cheerios?
I think one of the questions that I always ask, and that will right away set the stage in terms of how prepared an intern is, tell me a little bit about what prompted your interest in Southern California Edison. And I'm always impressed with students that really did do their research and have seen all the new things that we're doing. That tends to be my go-to, and almost like an icebreaker, just to get an understanding of like their desire and their interest in the organization. So that tends to be my go-to. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, if we're doing the more serious stuff, I do like to see their interest in the role. So why specifically did you apply to this role out of the so many that we have at TI? Especially for electrical computer engineers, they're qualified to do quite a few jobs. So why specifically are you interviewing for this one? Try to get their engagement on their ambitions and things like that. If I want to do like a more kind of non-serious one, I'll ask them, well, if you were an engineer, what kind of job would you be going for? But typically, I don't get too much time to answer those the fun ones.
Yeah, well, most people ask about your strengths, and my least favorite is when they ask you your weakness. So they say, "What is your greatest weakness?" I mean, my go-to answer on that one is chocolate, but not all. But not all interviewers or managers think that's a great answer. So when you ask people what their weakness is, so some people are going to be asked this on interviews coming up. What would you say your weakness is? Or, what would you recommend that they say to this question? I think it's one of the tougher ones to answer, because, you don't want to say, well, I'm disorganized. I can never be on time. I'm unable to, I can't really write. So what would you recommend to people?
Yeah, so we don't ask that question, but we ask a variation of that question where I think helps them understand kind of what we're trying to get at. So tell me about a time in which you had either a project or, school-wise, either a project or some type of, paper maybe you were writing that didn't go as well as you had planned. What were your lessons learned? something along those lines versus I feel the what are your weakness question is kind of like a gotcha question personally. So I don't really encourage that question too much because again, interviewing is nerve-wracking again as it is. So we're trying to really get a good feel, not throw someone off. But for those that employers that do ask that question, I'm sure they're probably just trying to assess, how you rebound or what you learn from maybe an area of opportunity that you're still working on. I would just think of, what were your lessons learned? What would you do differently, and tie it that way.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. What about you, Mark? Because maybe when I graduated, this was the question they always asked. What's your strength? So then, what is your weakness? But I'm sure there's a different way to ask that, and maybe some good suggestions for people how they give some context to that answer without saying chocolate.
Right. I personally do like the chocolate one. That would kind of disarm me. And then also just like being honest is also kind of an interesting take as well. Like if it's a genuine response and you say, this is my actual weakness, some people appreciate that. But like you said, Nancy, it really depends on the interviewer. Some people are having certain criteria they want to hear in an answer. I'm obviously a little bit more of a pushover, but as far as
you're a super nice guy, Mark. We know that.
I would try to deflect it more if it's something that's going to be trying to like Marissa mentioned, kind of like a gotcha where it's trying to hit you with something negative. You want to try to deflect that or invert that back into a strength. So basically, this time, but then I kind of navigated and did X, Y, Z to like overcome it and stuff like that. So you want to like reiterate your strengths, even though it's a weakness question.
Yeah, I really think it's great to have those examples. I think that when you're preparing for an interview, and mock interviewing is important. I know both your companies do this. I know you've done mock interviews. You recently, Southern California, Edison was doing this with one of our chapters out in Southern California at the Cal State Northridge. I know you were just recently working with them. We have a lot of chapters that do this, and we've done this before. Maybe we'll probably do this at the Student Leadership Conference too, mock interviews. How important do you think that is, actually practicing sitting with someone else who might even, looking, just pretending to be the interviewer? Would you recommend to people that they sit with a friend or someone else and pretend interview?
I think they're the best way to shake out those nerves or even find what maybe even your nervous tics are. And sometimes you don't realize that until someone points it out to you. So I myself used to be a pen clicker. So I always had a clicking pen. And that was the way I was like kind of putting myself at ease, was clicking the pen. And I didn't know that about myself until someone said, like, you're clicking your pen the whole time. Do you even realize that? And I was like, I did not even know. So it's just like those little nuances that you may not even be aware about yourself, that practicing and having the opportunity to do mock interviews, it gives an opportunity for someone to provide you with some, good feedback. I oftentimes see, hair twirlers, they're twirling their hair. And these are all just things that come out of nerves. But the more you practice, the more that you're able to kind of shake some of those nuances and nerve tics out, because you've had the opportunity to ask some questions, or as well as practice some of your answers and ask for feedback in terms of how did that sound? What else should I add? What else should I highlight? I highly recommend, mock interviews. We try to provide as many mock interviews to our student groups as possible, just because it's a good way just to get a good understanding of, how interviews go, what employers are looking for. So I highly recommend them.
Yep, same for me. And yeah, Marissa highlighted a lot of employers are giving those resources to you, hopefully on campus. So definitely take advantage of those. And that's a great way to network with the company. That's actually the intention of what we're trying to do. Of course, we want to give you good advice, but we actually want to network with you as well. So if there's companies that you're interested in that are giving mock interviews, definitely take advantage of it. And then also, I would just say practice by playing. If there's some companies that maybe are lower on your priority list, but you would still be interested in potentially working there, put those interviews, try to apply those companies early and get those interviews on the book so you can start practicing. And then when you get to those, really the ones you're really trying to go for, you'll be a bit more prepared. So definitely mock and real interviews would be good. Obviously with mock, you get the feedback about things that you can improve on, but with the real interview, you're experiencing the real emotion, the real questions. So definitely practicing by playing is great.
Have you had people you've interviewed come back to you and ask you for feedback in a real interview? If they come back and said, gee, how did I do? And how would you respond if someone said to you, gee, how did I do, Mark? Marissa, what did you think? How was I as a candidate? What would you recommend to me? Even if I didn't, especially if I didn't get the job, how would you respond to that?
It will depend. A lot of it is just high level. The feedback that we'll provide in terms of if it's communication skills, talk a little bit more about that. If it's something in regards to just align like professionalism or business acumen, I think Mark touched on that earlier in this discussion. Folks have become a lot more casual in their communication style, I think, because you're in the comfort of your home. So sometimes letting those, I don't know the best way, like the slang, I guess, like some of those slang words come out, and there's a lot of filler words that tend to lean more on the slang side that you just want to be aware of and ensure that you're not overusing or using at all. So providing a lot of the high level feedback is what we do. I personally do the first phone screen. And so we have a 2-step process at Edison as well. You do a phone screen with someone on my team and then a panel interview with the actual department. So when I go back to the department, they fill out an interview evaluation sheet that also kind of lists some areas of development. And when students contact me, I definitely provide them that feedback.
Yeah, I think it just depends. We're doing a lot of interviews, and we have a lot of interviewers scheduled and talking to all kinds of students all the time. So it just depends. Sometimes you'll get a friendly one who'd be happy to provide feedback, and sometimes they're off moving on to the next one. So it'll depend. It's worth asking sometimes, but like I said, you'll know if you did well in the interview or if you didn't. And really kind of for feedback stuff, the mock interviews really are the best venue to get the true feedback about your presentation.
I agree. I also think that this online world, so even like today, being on screen with other people, and you can see yourself too, right? It makes you. I think this kind of has prepared us a little bit to see what we actually look like. You can see your background, you can see yourself, maybe a little bit as others see you. So I think some of the self-awareness that probably has come through what we've learned during the pandemic in terms of virtual interviewing or these kinds of being on virtual meetings and calls all the time really, can be really helpful. 95% of communication is nonverbal, so people often forget that, right? It's a lot of the nonverbal that drives what people actually see and learn about you. Anything else that you'd like to make sure to share with our students and others here today who are looking for jobs or thinking about their careers? Any other great best advice you'd like to give them?
I would say definitely be yourself. We definitely want people that are genuine and authentic in their approach and style. So, don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't present one persona and then when you get to the job, you're someone different. We really want people to be able to feel comfortable bringing their authentic selves to work. So that's always the advice, that I give in terms of when I'm talking to students and they're not quite sure how to best prepare. You always want to work for an organization that mirrors, your values again and what you're looking for. So those are just some pointers I give students on campus.
Nancy, just a quick point. Are we having the Q&A section?
They were just telling me, oh, look at that. I didn't see any in there in here before. And so now I'm in there looking at, in my experience, rare to get a response from recruiters or company, online applications. What are your suggestions for applying through online portals?
Yeah. I can take that one, then Marissa, you can add on. I think the reality is we need you to apply to the online portals. So that's really kind of the main step you as the candidate have to do. We can't proceed with interviews. We can't do anything until you apply for that position on the online portal. So it's a critical step. I know it feels like you're sending your resume into a void and, I'll never see it again. But trust me, that is actually the main thing you have to do as a candidate to get to work for a company is to apply those online portals. As far as getting the feedback on, whether it's an online assessment or interview schedule or things like that, it's going to vary company to company. There's all kinds of things. And again, it's the match between your skill set, your major with the available roles. And that changes throughout the year, right? At the beginning of the year, there's going to be a whole bunch of openings. As we get toward the end of the school year, it's going to be a lot less and what's available and everything. So there's going to be all kinds of variables around when you're going to get a response and how quick everything rolls. And with all the things we're doing with virtual, there is a lot of lag. I think I saw another question around, is there more lag because of the pandemic? Definitely, yes. I think we're trying to process way more candidates than we've ever had to before, with maybe less people than ever before, things like that. So there's definitely ways that we're trying to be as efficient as possible to get responses to candidates so that they can get their decisions quickly or at least understand their status quickly. But yeah, there's definitely going to be, I think, a bit of patience that's required on the candidate side. And then, of course, some stuff that we'll have to do on the employer side to improve that. Marissa?
I would agree. I think another way to interact just with employers is something that we mentioned early. If we're on your campus, definitely show up, meet people. If you want to interact with someone, via LinkedIn, there's always ways to connect with people from my team. You can connect with me personally. That's a good way to stay up to date with what we have going on, in our organization. And then you just make connections that way and continue to build out your network.
Great. And I think that's a good suggestion. So there's another question about, are your companies in office or are your operations still remote? Should I expect to start work remotely?
So ours will be hybrid. So students will be 1 to 2 days in the office, and then the rest of the time they'll be working remote.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we're in person with some flex based on your manager and your job role.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the other part of that question was, how do I get to know my colleagues if I'm at home? I think those of us who worked remotely for 2 years know how, you've got to work hard to stay in touch.
Right. And there's a lot of touch points, especially with our interns, to provide them that sense of community as well. So there's lots of ways to stay connected with your team.
Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on candidates either submitting portfolios with an application or bringing one to an interview to show off the projects they've worked on? Is this helpful or beneficial? Do you have any do's and don'ts for portfolios?
I strongly don't recommend portfolios unless they're specifically asked for in the job posting or the recruiter tells you to prepare a portfolio. Mm-hmm. I find when students, and this is just my own personal observation, is when students, or even when I do full cycle recruiting, bring in portfolios, there tends to not be a tie-in. So if you bring a portfolio and don't tie it into the interview, then we're left with this portfolio that we're not exactly sure what to do with. And also sometimes I find the portfolios can sometimes work against you if they weren't properly prepared or screened. There tends to be a lot of errors or things on that, and that would work against you to some respect.
Any thoughts on that, Mark?
I think it's good. I think a portfolio in the engineering context where it's just like the projects you've done technically. So if it's showing strong technical prowess and it's something you've invested a lot of time in, I think it's okay to mention it in an interview or potentially bring a show and tell or something like that. But yeah, again, it's got to be tied into your technical performance if you're applying for a technical role.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the other part of that question, is there a big lag after initial interviews? Are you finding a longer time frame between when people apply, when they get an interview, when they get the next interview? Because I know I interview in cycles too. Are you finding there's a longer lag in today's environment?
There's a little bit of a lag. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's longer though than what it's been in past, but there's just a lag because of the sheer volume that we're trying to process, and with everybody working their full-time job and then fitting and interviewing when they can. Sometimes it's just a scheduling issue more than anything else. But like I said, we only have a couple of interns left, opportunities left. We already have 130 acceptances. And so we try to get as much as we can done early in the year, just so that students are focused on their finals and their last minute projects and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. And Mark, you said you've got a lot of jobs, right? You've got a lot of internships.
We still have a lot of jobs, just because of the growth that we're having in the industry. Mm-hmm. So yeah, typically though, the cycle is very important. So beginning of each semester is really where TI, but I think most employers, or at least the larger ones, are focusing their efforts. So you'll start to see those new job postings in the August, September timeframe, the January, February timeframe, and definitely apply each semester as those new roles populate. So even if you try to apply for something in the fall and then didn't get anything, but then in the spring it's all new postings. So definitely continue those cycles based on the beginning of the semester.
Mhm.
And your fall is really the best chance because we're starting for the new year. We're trying to hire for our
Mhm.
summer interns. So take that fall time frame super seriously. Try to apply as many as you can, get as many interview opportunities as you can. That's really the prime time where you have the most chances, most probability to get something. And if you wait till the spring semester, you have some chance, but it's diminished because just some of those have been filled.
Mhm. That's great. We're coming to our end of our time because you both have been so interesting. I really appreciate that you're being with us today and sharing your insights on these things, being sponsors of this event, and overall really supporting students at Acapanu and all students. Really thank you for all that you do to make sure that those opportunities and the information is out there to help people be successful in their careers and actually learn about your wonderful companies. So please go visit Marissa and Mark over in their booths over in the Expo Center. The career fair starts in about 8 minutes, so we should get over there. And again, thanks for joining us today, and thank you both, Mark and Marissa.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I think.
All right.
All right. Thanks so much,
Lindsay.
Mark. See you
Bye.
over there. All right. Bye-bye.